First item of business be approval of the July invoices. If everyone's had a chance to look over them, we need a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Caldwell,
A second.
second by Ms. Mizell. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion approved. Next item of business is approval of the July 13th, 2017 minutes. Need a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Solsky,
Second.
second by Mr. Smith. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion approved. Approval of the August agenda. Need a motion to approve the agenda, please.
I make motion for the approval of the agenda.
Motion by Ms. Mizell,
I'll second the motion,
Second.
taking note the changes we did on Monday,
With the-
withdrawing the PDP 2017-4,
Yeah.
which was the change.
Yeah, we'll do that on the next one,
Okay.
though. Second by Mr. Solsky. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion approved. Items for postponement withdrawal. Let's see, PDP 2017-14, the Morgan Property Tract 2 preliminary development plan for 3750 square foot commercial building and 26 parking spaces on 1.66 acres located on the south side of Paris Pike, US 460 East, between Arby's and the Elkhorn Creek, has been withdrawn. That application has been withdrawn. And also, ZMA 2017-26 Betty Yancey Griffith Trust Property rezoning request from A1 to R1C PUC R2 C1 and B1 for 122 acres and conceptual development plan for 300 single-family lots on 73 acres, 300 multifamily units on 26 acres, 2 acres of B1 neighborhood commercial, and 18 acres of conservation zone located on the east side of Cincinnati Pike, adjacent to Ann Mason Elementary School, has been postponed. So if you're here for either one of those, they won't even be heard tonight. So. Now we're down to the next item of business. It's a consent agenda. We have one item up for consent tonight. It's FSP 2017-27. I guess that's what that is.
Yeah.
The Mullen Estate property, final subdivision plat for the creation of one 5-acre tract from a parent tract of 74.5 acres located at 1234 White Oak Road. Is anyone here to speak against that application? If no one is here to speak against that application, that application is up for consent. We'll need a motion to approve it, please.
I'll make a motion to approve it as consent.
Motion by Mr. Solsky.
Second.
Second by Mr. Smith. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion approved. I'm assuming everybody else is here for the last application, so we won't even go through that spiel. So, Joe, I guess we need to move on to item B on new business, FSP 2017-28 BBJ Holdings property. It's a final subdivision plat for the creation of 2 5-acre tracts and 6 10-acre tracts from a parent tract of 72.15 acres located on the east side of Stamping Ground Road, north of Lloyd Road.
Everybody signed in, thinks they may speak tonight? Okay. I'll leave one here just in case.
Hey, Charlie, you want to go ahead and swear everyone in real quick?
Yes. All right. Everyone signed in to speak tonight. If you could stand and raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm the statement you're to make tonight to be the best of your information and belief? Thank you.
All right.
For the record, Mr. Wiseman is now present.
Okay, this is a request for approval of a preliminary subdivision plat for 8 rural tracts on the corners, the northeast corner, Stamping Ground Road and Lloyd Road, just over the Elkhorn. The request is for 6 10-plus acre tracts and 2 5-acre tracts. In 2012, I believe, we created a new zoning category called rural residential, and it requires a rezoning for any subdivisions creating, any major subdivisions between 5 and 10 acres, and a major subdivision is anything more than 2. So 3 tracts of between 5 and 10 acres. This subdivision is proposing 2 5-acre tracts, the rest 10+ acre tracts, so it doesn't fall into that category of needing to be rezoned. So there is not a rezoning tonight, it's only a subdivision plat approval. This is the property, it's a portion of the larger original Taylor farm. It does have 2 residences on it, has some ag buildings on it, and the proposal is this, to split 2 5-acre tracts off Lloyd and leave 1 10-acre tract with a home on Lloyd, and the remaining tracts will be off, getting their access off Stamping Ground Road, so 3 along the frontage and then 2 in the rear. And the proposal is that these 2 tracts in the rear will share an access easement and driveway off Stamping Ground Road. Stamping Ground Road is a state road, so those entrances will need approval from the state. There are 2 new driveways proposed here and here. There's already an existing driveway that accesses the farm, and you can see it in the aerial, and it's in the middle of track 2. Here, it's highlighted in the white. Other than that, I don't believe there are any cuts, any driveway cuts on the farm off Stamping Ground Road. I believe that's the only one in this area. So they will need 2 state encroachment permits here. On Lloyd Road, there's already an entrance and a home on this tract. Tract 1 gets its access off an existing entrance from Stamping Ground Road. So there's 1 driveway encroachment permit required from the county to access Lloyd Road. So 1 new driveway to tract 8 and two new driveways to Stamping Ground Road. The layout, the size, dimensions, widths of the tracks all meet our A1 requirements. We require 250 feet of width at the building line, 50-foot setbacks, and no more than 3 can be served by a driveway. So those are our basic requirements for A1 subdivisions. This meets all those requirements. And in addition, because these are larger than what's allowed in A1, and it doesn't meet our definition of needing the A5 rezoning, there's no additional rezoning required. So they just need the approval tonight from the board, and then they can submit the final plat with all their encroachment permit approvals, and they can plat these lots and offer them for sale. I guess we have gotten some feedback, and I have that a memo from Chip Richardson that I've handed out. He asked that we submit that into the record since he couldn't be here. I'm not going to read that, but generally his issues with the subdivision are, 1, this is a historic area, it's a historic farm. It's a area that, if it is subdivided and new homes are built adjacent to the original antebellum home, within that view shed, it's going to affect not only the historic, I guess, character of the area, but also the historic significance and value of that home and its contribution to the community. So he would rather not see this subdivision happen, although A1 zoning does allow you to subdivide by right if you meet the general subdivision standards for A1 subdivisions. His other concern is with the entrance on Stamping Ground Road, I believe, and the karst features that exist on the farm. That kind of summarizes his concerns, but you can read through the memo for yourself while I finish my presentation. Generally, I guess our staff concerns are mainly with the entrance on Stamping Ground Road, I would say. Especially this middle entrance is in a low spot and sight distance isn't great. And I've kind of provided some, I'll skip forward to Stamping Ground Road. This is at the location of that middle entrance, or, sorry. Okay. This is that middle entrance, so it's in the low spot of the road. Sight distance to the south isn't great, but at least it's a straightaway look to the south. I'm not sure, I didn't have a chance to get out and walk to measure the distance, but it's sight distance is typically measured based on the speed limit of the road. So minimum sight distance for county roads is 250 feet with every increase in speed limit above 25, it's basically an additional, for every 5 miles per hour over 25, increase 50 feet of required sight distance. So 30 miles an hour is 300 feet, 35 is 350. If this was a county road, sight distance would probably be borderline to the south. And to the north, it's kind of, there's a bend in the road, so it's not great sight distance to the north either. These, and I'll go to this is the northernmost entrance looking north, or looking south, in the northernmost entrance looking north. So sight distance is a little better at the northern entrance, and again and this is the southern entrance. So I mainly put these slides in here for reference if the issue is a major concern of the commission. We can kind of go over these slides again, but to return to the plat, this is the proposed entrance in the middle that has the sight distance issues. I think it's a low spot kind of in the road, and sight distance is a little better here. I did talk to this, well, I talked through messages to the state encroachment permit person. We went back and forth. I left like 3 messages with him. He left 3 messages with me. Every time I called him back, he was in a meeting. But I did relay my concerns, and then he answered my concerns. Basically, they will have to evaluate this entrance further. I mean, they haven't given final approval. They were concerned more with the multiple residences using these access points, and he wanted to know how many lots would be served by these. I told him 3. That seemed to make him feel a little better about it, but he was concerned that it was be a major entrance for a subdivision. But they will have to evaluate these 2 locations further. So I would recommend, if you approve the subdivision, that you make that we say something about this entrance, that you're concerned about it, and he can evaluate it a little bit closer. The entrance from the county road that serves Lot 8 could potentially serve Lot 6 as well, I think. So there may be a possibility of getting rid of this entrance altogether and using this entrance right here that's already there to serve Lot 2, and then maybe serving Lot 6 from the county road. Because right now this entrance only serves Lots 2 and 6. This one serves 3, 4, and 5. So there's a possibility that this may not even be needed here. And if they could get rid of that. And based on past experience, if there's an existing entrance there serving a lot, they're less likely to approve another one right next to it. So may add a condition that either that entrance is not desired by the board, or that, that entrance is not allowed, and I'm not sure. The state has final approval on encroachments to a state road, so I don't know exactly if you have the legal authority to stop that entrance from being approved, but you can at least voice your concern. As far as the entrances from county roads, if there's a major subdivision on a county road and that road is undersized, so it doesn't meet county standards, typically we require it to be widened along the frontage. We looked at the width of Lloyd Road, and there's been an edge added by the county road department recently, and the width is pretty good actually until that entrance to lot 8. It varies in width, but it goes anywhere from 18 to 19 in this general area. It narrows quite a bit to the, sorry, jumping all over here. How did that flip? That's weird. See if I can get that back. Well, anyway, I don't know how I can get that back around, but without my glasses.
Format changed.
I don't know. I just pushed the page down. I've never done that before. But
Six-year-old.
anyway, the width is
Six-year-olds in there.
the width is sufficient. Ben Krebs went out and looked at it to the entrance, and typically, if a new entrance is proposed, we get the widening at least to the entrance. Beyond Lot 8, there's no new entrances proposed, so we think and with only one new lot added to the county road, we don't think it necessitates widening a portion of the road that's not getting any additional entrances. So we're not recommending widening Lloyd Road any more than it is.
You said maybe that lot 6 could come back onto Lloyd Road. What if they brought that one back?
Well, yeah, there is. If Lot 6 gets its access, then there'll be 2 in that new entrance. But it is widened. Lloyd Road is widened from Stamping Ground Road back to that
So it would
proposed
cover
entrance
it.
location. It's
So
just
it
to
would
the
cover it
north.
if they brought it back to there? Okay.
Yeah. I wish I could figure out how to flip that back around. There we go. Sorry. Okay. So as far as other issues, the karst. See if I can get back up to the plat. The karst features that show up in our GIS layer have been identified. Any new homes will have to avoid those karst areas in construction, and also with their septic systems and drain fields. They can't drain into any open sinkhole areas. Health department will review that and approve each lot for septic systems, and they'll have to certify the final plat. Other than that, they have identified a drainage area across the lots with a drainage easement. I did get an email that there might be another drainage low area that crosses these lots. We'll have to look at that, and if it requires a drainage easement, we'll just have to get that applied at the time of the final plat approval. Other than that, we are recommending approval with the standard conditions for rural subdivision plats. As far as fencing, I know we talked about fencing at the last meeting, and we're updating our fencing and landscaping requirements for A5 zoning. Currently, A1 zoned rural lots don't require fencing or landscaping around the 5-acre tracts, or in this case 10 and 5-acre tracts. So that is not a requirement of our landscape ordinance, so there aren't currently fencing requirements around these lots. I think there is some fencing out there, but internally there's no fencing along these boundaries currently. That's all I had. We are recommending approval with the 6 conditions of approval in the staff report. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Anyone on the commission have a question?
Joe, these, correct me if I'm wrong, but these 10 and more acre lots are still gonna be farm status, correct?
Right.
Being that
They'll
size.
still be A1
Yeah.
agricultural
Yeah.
lots, yes.
Okay.
Any other questions for staff right now? Thank you, Joe. Is the applicant here to speak?
Hello, my name is Brian Jones. I'm the managing partner for BBJ Holdings. Really, I will turn my time over to Mr. Day and Mr. Langford if they've got, want to address any issues that may be spoken here after I talk. But my goal on this has been from the start, we didn't pursue doing a cluster type subdivision, was to take this area that I like, I live on Ironworks Road, and make some nice lots with improving the existing stone walls that are already there and removing some of the old fencing, renovating the barns, and my plan is to actually fence these lots with floorboard plank fencing. So even though that's not in the requirements right now, that is my intention. So I'll defer any of my time over to Joel and Mr. Langford. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Langford, y'all good with the, whichever one of you?
My name's Joel Day. I prepared the plat. Before I forget, Lot 7 already has a residence and a driveway there. So there's only going to be one new driveway on Lloyd Road, which will be for Lot 8. That division line between 7 and 8, I think we're going to turn that, keeping the 5 acres, but so that it more parallels that drainage easement. In regards to the other drainage easement, you see it mainly on Lot 1 where that kind of teardrop shape that's, I think Joe's right, there probably is a drainage culvert. Now on the other end, there's a box culvert of a thing. Not so much of a culvert down here, but probably is a drainage area. It needs to be with some kind of easement from maybe the existing driveway easterly. I'm not sure, but I think you might be mistaken, Joe. The eastern or southeasternmost proposed entrance should be on the very high spot. Not on the low spot, but on the very high spot, and then the northernmost one would be on the low spot.
The middle one also, on the low spot.
The
You're saying the middle one's on the high spot?
The one between 2 and 3 should be on the high spot. Now the one that says existing, that's in the center of Lot 2, really bad sight distance. That's the existing entrance into the farm. And if you're pulling out of there and making a left towards Great Crossings, it's you have to roll your window down and listen, see if something's coming over the hill. I might mention too, that's 35-mile-an-hour zone. I don't know how much it's observed. Yeah, I don't know how
Everybody will get a chance to speak.
But it is from somewhere about there. It's 35-mile zone in the Great Crossing, but you know what those signs mean. But anyway, that's all. I just wanted to add those couple of things. Thank you.
Mr. Langford?
My name is Bruce Langford. I'm here with the owner, Brian Jones, and Joel Day, who prepared the plans. And as I understand from Joel's report and plans, Brian Jones is complying with the regulations. Joe's report indicates he's complying with regulations. He still has to comply with the Department of Highways, but he can do that, and if it's necessary, as I understand it, he can change his plans. Joe will have to do that and go over that with Joe Kane, but otherwise, the regulations are designed to allow this development, And as long as you can do it and comply with the regulations, as Joe Kane said, is a right that Brian Jones is entitled to exercise. And it looks to me like that's what he's trying to do. We want to be sure that he complies with the regulations. I'm sure that Joe Kane will do that with his staff. And otherwise, we're here to ask you if you have any questions.
Does anyone have any questions for the applicant at this time? Mr. Day, I have one. That lot 2, is that a sinkhole on that lot?
They weren't identified as sinkholes, but Ben Krebs told me they're potential karst features.
Okay.
So,
I kind of noticed a little brown spot when I drove by today on my way home.
well, there was they had some fence there, and Brian has been doing some cleaning up out there.
Okay, come on up to the microphone. Come on, welcome. I was just asking, I was curious, I seen that when I drove by today.
There's actually there was a horse farmer there by the name of Noel Murphy, and he had some little circle paddocks that he had put in places, I guess, to keep the horses out of. And it looked to me like it was just some rough ground, and we used it when we were doing some cleaning of the fencing as burn spots.
Okay.
So after burning, I actually looked at it pretty good. It's no water, but there were a couple little, some spots in the soil, but I didn't see anything that would lead towards a sinkhole. Maybe some places that might hold some water, from runoff.
I just seen it today.
The brown spots are from burning, though.
I just thought I'd ask that
Yeah,
question. I thought
okay.
that looks different. Does anyone else have any questions for the applicants? If not,
I have one I'd like to ask Joe.
Okay, go ahead. Joe?
Approximately how many lots are platted in Georgetown and Scott County now that are not yet been built on and can be built on easily?
I wish I had that number. I can't recall. I think in the city of Georgetown, it's down to about 700. So
Does that include
probably
the
1,400 or so
1,400 total in the county, do you think?
total. Yeah.
Does that include the new part of Pleasant Valley?
No. No,
How
the
many
new
are
part
going
that
out
they're
there?
constructing now.
Huh.
No, not the part that they're. You mean the new part they just platted?
I won't use the word I want to use. They've taken
Well,
all the topsoil off and
Yeah.
how many are
Clear.
going in
I
there?
think it's under. They're constructing. They're putting in the roads now. So that does not include.
How many
those.
would there be there? Hundreds?
100. I think 100, 120.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Now we'll start with the public opinion, and Charlie will call your name or whatever. Let's try to keep it even here, let's don't have a bunch of outbursts and stuff. Let's try to be a little professional about all this, so, Charlie.
First one's Mr. Conway.
That's what you get for getting here early. See?
My name is Haley Conway, and I'm a lifelong resident of Scott County. And I, first of all, would like to thank you all for your service. For somebody that's been on the school board and chairman of the school board, I know you're not here because of the pay, and I know you're not here because it's a job that you really feel like is very well appreciated, but it's something that has to be done, and I appreciate that very much.
State your address, Mr. Wright.
I live at 1553 Stamping Ground Road.
Thank you.
And I'm here for two reasons. And I will tell you, one of them is the passion for what's going on here tonight with this property. And I will tell you that when I used to tell the board I was passionate about something, they start laughing, they put their pens down, lean back in the chair, and they knew it was going to be a long time. So I'll try to keep it under an hour. Live out there on the next hill from this property. There's a number of different reasons. When I heard that it had been sold, it didn't matter who it had been sold to, it was like I lost a member of my family. I drive by this piece of property 20, 30, 40 times a day, easy. What concerned me was I felt like I knew exactly what was going to happen to it. And I'm not stupid. You can't pay what they paid for it and make it farming. So I knew it was going to be developed. Somebody was going to buy it and going to turn it, going to make a profit. It's all about making a profit. Very historical land. that we all live on out there, and is probably the most historical part of Scott County. I'm here for a number of different reasons, and I'll try to encapsulate them and not take a whole lot of your time. One of the reasons that I'm here is, you know, when Toyota announced in '86 they were coming to town, I felt like I knew what was going to happen. And I've pretty much been on the money. But I was hoping that Scott County would learn from the sins and mistakes that Jessamine County made. I can honestly tell you, go down 27 now, you can't tell where the Fayette County line ends and the Jessamine County line begins. And we're going that way. 5-acre tracts were brought in before Toyota to kind of control growth in Scott County and to keep us from growing into Lexington. Pretty much that's why it came into existence. 5-acre tracts now, in my opinion, are killing the county for a number of different reasons. We're in a situation now that every time somebody's moving here, there's a cost to our infrastructure. Our infrastructure is not strong enough to support the growth that we're occurring now, let alone the growth that's coming. Being on the school board, I'm a party to all that information. People moan and groan when their taxes are raised to build additional schools, to house the kids that we have now. They're not even looking at the kids that are coming. I am concerned that with 5-acre tracts and 10-acre tracts, and I'm not against it. First of all, let me state, I'm not against growth at all. I'm not against development. I'm not against developers. A lot of good friends of mine are in real estate, developers. Rob, I consider you a good friend. I know you make money in the trade industry. But, you know, we're at a crossroad in this county that we're going to have to, at some point in time, stop, catch our breath, and move forward again. I think we're kind of getting there. Like was said earlier, a lot of the undeveloped lots in the city of Georgetown have been developed. You know, the road I live on was the last major thoroughfare in Scott County that didn't have a development. That was it. It was pristine. Now, I'm going to tell you that Valley Lane is the worst damn road in Scott County. Most dangerous road in Scott County. The second most dangerous road is Stamping Ground Road, 227. I have seen them pass my house going over 100 miles an hour, and I live on top of McIntyre Stretch. It's horrible. I've seen people going 70, 80 miles an hour over that bridge, over the creek, in downtown Great Crossings. I like to tell people I live in Greater Great Crossings. That road's dangerous. I'm also going to tell you that today is August the 10th. It's a matter of time, mark what I said now, that somebody's either going to get seriously injured or killed at the intersection of Betsy Way and the bridge there because they're not stopping at the stop sign. You put additional traffic out there. There is no good egress onto Valley Lane. And I'm telling you, going into Great Crossings, there's no good entrance in there to a subdivision. We live on the next hill. It's horrible. Where the picture was, I saw a minute ago, a good friend of mine 2 years ago was crippled. Right there where that car was hit by somebody coming across the road, hit him head on. The farm that I live on has been in my wife's family since 1886. The farm that I own the other end of the county, part of it, small part, has been in my family since 1790. My family, my dad's family came to Kentucky 240 years ago last month. Served with Daniel Boone at Boonesboro. Tradition and history and roots matter to me. And we're losing it in Scott County. Great Crossings will cease to exist in 20 years. It will never be there ever again. It's historical. It's very historical. If you start looking, read the books, read what the information is out there, it'll blow you away. Every time I dig dirt on my farm, I find arrowheads. And like I said, when I heard the Taylor Farm sold, it broke my heart. See, they sold another part, and I was instrumental in buying it. I went to Mrs. Taylor, and there was a plat on her kitchen table to turn it into a subdivision. That's now where the new Great Crossings High School is going to go. And I felt other than a church, there was no more honorable use of land than a school. So we bought it. We stemmed the growth coming. I look at my house now and I see Western Elementary. I see Canewood. I look out the other part. I got 1,900 acres beside me in one track, 600 acres across the road, 300 acres behind me, 300 acres on the other side. The next farm over is this one. And I'm being selfish. I hate to see change. Change is inevitable. Change is going to occur. I've learned, if nothing else in life, that you have to adapt to change, or you'll be on the outside looking in. And one of the things, it's not my place to tell you how to do your job. It wasn't your place to come and tell me how to run the schools. But I will tell you that I hope that you all are doing a very thorough, up-to-date revision of your rules and bylaws, because Scott County is changing. I can see the day where I won't be able to tell when I move into Fayette County from Scott County, because the development on 25 is already starting to occur. It's going to happen in other parts of the county. We're growing. I made this comment to Tom Prather, and it made Tom mad, just personally, that we're becoming a bedroom community of Lexington, Fayette County. And guys, that's true. People are moving out of Lexington every time there's a murder, there's traffic congestion, there's, everything else that's going on there. They're looking to get away from there. They can't go to Woodford County if you want a piece of the country. You can't go to Bourbon County, and you can't go to Fayette County. So they're going to Scott or they're going to Madison. And I would argue that many of them are coming to Scott County because this is a wonderful place to live. I've had many opportunities to leave with my job in the past. I decided to stay here and raise my family here. This is home. I will die here. I was born in John Grace Ford Memorial Hospital. I'll be buried in Georgetown Cemetery. This is home. There's nothing like your roots. There's nothing like your history. There's nothing like your family that will attach you as a human being. And this farm, I hate to see leave. It's going to leave. I mean, it's up to you all to structure the bylaws and the policies that you adhere to. Right now, there's probably nothing that's here that says, Haley, we have to vote against it. I'm sure it meets every criteria that you have set forth or a previous board has set forth. I just hope that you continue to update your policies and procedures to meet the growth and the needs of Scott County, because Scott County is changing. It's going to change even more in the next 10 years, and the projections are we are looking at doubling in the next 20. So I ask you, as citizens, fellow citizens of Scott County, and good people that I know you are, just to stay on top of it. I am so sorry that this property is going to leave. It breaks my heart. It's one of the most beautiful pieces of property in Scott County. I look at it every day. I watch deer. I've seen the thoroughbreds. It's also a very dangerous road, and where they're looking to put this entrance is horrible. And I'm not sure there's a good place on that stretch for them to put the entrance. And I can promise you there's no place on Valley, not Valley, but Lloyd Pike, that it needs to go. Lloyd Pike's horrible. I will ask one question, though, that I'm ignorance on my part. My understanding is the whole farm sold, which was like 165 acres, and we're only talking about 70. What is the intent for the other part? Because that actually borders Mr. Hall's farm, who is my wife's uncle, and we do have concerns about that. And yes, our farm is at catty-corner. Oh, if you're looking at that, we're about where the hangar is, and we have sinkholes back there. So I'm just curious what the potential use is for the rest of the farm.
Can you come up to the microphone, please?
When we purchased the farm, it was, I guess when you look at the deed and the track work, it was 2 tracks. And we just decided to start at this track and go with the 5 and the 10s and see how that went. But our intentions are, of course, to continue. We bought the property to develop it. The property was on the market at one time, so people, had their opportunities they were intended to preserve it. It was there to be bought. So we purchased the property, and our intentions are to develop the property, really probably along the same manner as this, but we would withhold that decision to a later time. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. I just want to again reiterate, thank you all very much for what you do. I know it's tough. There's nothing you're going to do here that's going to make everybody happy. It's impossible to make everybody happy. But please just give consideration to this situation and future situations. And if for any way in the world, I will tell you one thing, there's no doubt in my mind, there's been more people killed on 227 in the last 5 years than any other road in Scott County other than the interstates. So anytime you have a chance to make a decision, I would put people's safety first. Thank you.
Mr. Conway, could I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
Come back up here, please, so that you can hear.
And I apologize. Since I got off the board 5 months ago, I've tried to disappear, so I'm not good at public speaking right now.
You made allusion to something that I've been wondering about for a long time. You said people couldn't go to Woodford or Bourbon. They come here. Now, what is it that makes us easier prey than those other two counties?
5-acre tracts.
They don't have
Woodford
5 acre
County's got
tracts.
40. Bourbon County, if I'm not mistaken, unless it's changed recently, and this gentleman might be able to tell me, you could develop 2 5-acre tracts within a 3-year period, 3 5-acre tracts in a 5-year period. But Woodford and Fayette County have 40-acre minimums.
In the A1
And
area.
and if you look at the counties, look at how the quality of life there, it's awesome. Look at the counties that just let you develop Anderson, Franklin. You can tell there's a difference as soon as you hit the county line. And I don't want to degrade those counties, but you can tell. I'm just going to also tell you that people are moaning and groaning about having to pay more school tax, and I did too. But historically, people that I talk to that are moving to Scott County, and trust me, being on the school board, got 3,000 votes last time, so I'd like to think somebody thought I did a decent job. Those people told me that taxes in Scott County are cheap. Now, I have no point of reference because I haven't lived anywhere else, but they tell me when they come here, they're blown away how cheap our taxes are. So you're looking at cheap taxes, and if you want a piece of the country, you're looking at 5-acre tracts. And I'm telling you, it's a killer. Initially, it was started as a deterrent. And I don't think, Mr. Wiseman, if you start doing some research, you'll find it's deterrent anymore. I went down to Ironworks the other day, the amount of development, Frankfort Pike, all the way to the Franklin County line. I work in Frankfort. It's almost development upon development. And like I said, Stamming Ground Road 227 was the last major thoroughfare in Scott County that didn't have a development. Now we're looking to develop. So, and Mr. Cannon, you live in the great city of Oxford. Did you know what I'm talking
I
about?
go by my house about 90 miles an hour every day. And there's a wreck down on the corner every day.
Oh, it's.
Every day.
I've called the sheriff here in the last couple of weeks and begged him to come out and sit out in my drive.
Is that a
I had motorcycles go past my house the other day. I know they were going 120 at least. Somebody's going to get killed. Thank y'all for your time.
Mr. Conway.
Yeah, that's nothing. Nothing.
Mr. Hall?
Now, wait a while. I think part of mine's already been said.
Oh, certainly you can. Mr. Young?
You take that.
Yes, I would like to know.
Mr. Young, could you state your name and your address, please?
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
My name is David Young. I live 117 Jones Lane at Great Crossing. And I would like to know if Jones Lane are considered in this program. Is it being taken?
No,
It's not?
Jones Lane has nothing to do with this application.
Okay, so Jones Lane's out,
Yes.
period.
Yes.
Okay, thanks very much.
Ms. Combs?
I'm Deborah Combs. I'm here representing James Combs and myself. We own 1146 and 1148 Stamping Ground Road, also known as Combs Welding, located on that property. I have a question. Can someone further define what the A1 agricultural zoning is? What does that include?
It's an agricultural zone, allows any agricultural use or ag-related business or many conditional uses that are related to ag. Churches, cemeteries, schools, there's other conditional uses allowed. Allows residences on 5-acre tracts.
As in Combs Welding that serves the agricultural community here?
That's probably a lawfully non-conforming use, a use that was in place either prior to zoning or achieved some type of grandfather status through use
No, actually, I think they've got a conditional use from years
I do.
ago.
We do.
Yeah.
There is a
So it could
conditional
be
use.
a conditional use, like a home occupation business.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the property that's under development there would not allow for a residential and a business such as Combs Welding that serves the community and agricultural community of this county.
It would allow residents, and the resident could apply for conditional use, so any home occupation that's allowed in A1 could be applied for, have to be granted by the County Board of Adjustment.
Okay, okay.
So,
That answers my question. James and I are very excited that you guys are developing this property because we will apply for a variance on that. We are interested in that property. Anyone who has been, Steve Smith, you've been to Combs Welding. Last week we had a tractor trailer come in there for work. Our business is growing, and we want our business to continue to grow, to serve our community, to serve the agricultural community here as well. We are hampered by our lot at 1146 Stamping Ground Road. We had to literally stop traffic to get a tractor trailer in there and out of there last week. I know the speed limits on 227. I know the hazards of 227. That's not an exclusive in this county. We actually reside off of US 25. There's been several people killed there because of trash trucks. So I don't think the issue of the traffic and the speed is solely a problem of 227. So I think you can probably take that off the board or take that off the table. But I do think that the opportunity for business owners to look at a piece of property like this where we can have our residents and have our business in the same location is needed in this county. We don't need to be restricted and fenced in by regulations that say you can only have this on this amount of property, or no, you can't do this because you might disturb your neighbor or whatever. So I hope that the Zoning and Planning Commission looks at this favorably. I think our developers have a good plot and a good plan for us for growth in the county, and I'm looking forward to seeing change as this county grows and improves. Yes?
What did you say your business was? I missed it at the beginning.
Our business is Combs Welding and Fabrication. We're located at
Right near
1146.
down at the bottom of the hill.
Yes, right there just past the bridge.
Yes.
James has been there since 2000.
Works on the road a lot. I guess he still stays on the road a lot, doesn't he?
No, James is back in his business 100% now. He was working. He was working for another person, a boiler company in Nicholasville, and his business, his customers here in Scott County were constantly, where are you at, where are you at, where are you at? And we are now back at our business, and I have taken a step back from the corporate world myself to join him as his office manager, as his marketing person. Our business this year alone has doubled what we did the entire year of 2016. So we're looking to grow. So we can either grow here in Scott County, which we want to. James is a native of Scott County. I'm a bonus. I come along with him, you know. But to have an opportunity where we can move right across the street into an area where our customers know where we're at, where our clients know where we're at, and we've got the opportunity for a little more space to build our business and to serve this community, and it equates to tax dollars that comes back into the community. If nothing else, that ought to get you. The money comes back. So it's a giver's gain. So that's all I have. Thank you.
See, Richard Murphy has left, I believe. Lewis Wolf.
Good evening, I'm Lewis Wolf, live at 404 East Main Street here in Georgetown. I'm a partner in a couple of farm operations, one of which is behind this property, not adjacent to it, but or adjacent to it, but not adjoining it, I guess. I understand Mr. Langford saying that it possibly meets all requirements, but there are conditions, as I understand, that you all may or could put on on that, and he would have to meet those conditions. I'm here for more information purposes, I guess, because I did go up to your all's offices and look at the plat and everything, and actually, I prefer the way that he has drawn it out in the 5 acre and 10 acre tracts and not being piano keyed down the road. I think aesthetically, this will look better. If it's got to happen, this would look better than piano keys, maybe. My question is, and maybe this isn't the venue for it, but what would happen or with the drives that go back? Are they gravel? Are they blacktop? Who maintains them? Is that something that you all address in the conditions, or I don't know?
We can. They would be private driveways, so they could be gravel or asphalt or concrete or whatever the choice of material was. It'd have to be maintained by the owners of the lots.
So if you've got 3 owners, those owners would have to share and agree on whatever
It'd be a
happens.
shared driveway, yes. You can have three lots on one gravel drive.
Okay.
You go beyond 3, you can no longer have a gravel drive. You have to have a
Right.
blacktop drive that meets the.
On 3, it has to meet county road standards, so it would have to become a county road.
Okay.
Go beyond 3.
Okay. Then to address my next question would be, if this meets the current criteria that it's being presented under, would the balance of the farm that's being purchased change the zoning or the conditions or the matter of fact approvals if that were to be put together? By separating this, is it making a difference?
No. You mean the remainder
Right.
of the farm?
Right.
No. If they ever brought that back in, they would have to come back before the board, and that would have to be all 10 acre tracts or larger. Otherwise, they would have to rezone to the A5 because they've done their 5 acres. But as far as approvals of this, no, it doesn't make any difference. That remainder is left.
Okay.
Joe, on that same question, he was saying there was 2 different deeds. or
Yeah, that's what I was gonna
there's
ask.
different needs.
If it's 2 different,
That's what the-
2 different,
Two different tracks, he said.
2 different
Yeah.
tracts or
But-
something, wasn't it?
was it one deed on the whole property, or is it different deeds on the property?
Could you answer that question for us, please?
No, and Mr. Langford may further, and I probably want to hear what you said again, because I don't think I
Well,
followed
I
you.
didn't remember that part about.
My understanding on this purchase it's multiple tracks, and I think Joel found that as he was doing his work for me, doing his due diligence on that. And Mr. Langford's son handled that, and he's not here tonight, but we just took the first track as it came. And our intentions were, we thought this was going to be a simple process because of the way we handled this through planning and zoning, but I guess it wasn't quite as what I thought. So I would reserve any future plans to how maybe this goes, and but I don't see a lot of changes on my intentions, but I don't feel like it's at my, it's the point in time today to elaborate on that because I really haven't addressed it yet. So.
But is it 2 deeds or 1 deed?
Yeah, the question.
Is it 2 deeds or 1
The
deed?
question is.
It is one deed.
It's 1 deed, okay.
It's
Then
one
that's-
deed for
one
the
deed,
entire
multiple
property. That was the question, because if it were 2 separate deeds on different tracks.
No.
See, then there's 2 5 acres, so if it's 1 deed, correct me if I'm wrong, Joe, all right, this will be the last 2 acres, or 2 5 acre tracts that can be cut off of the entire property, correct? Otherwise, it has to be rezoned.
Yeah, I mean, if it's all one.
If it goes
If
beyond.
it's all one
not 2
farm.
legal lots, 2 legal tracts already.
Well,
It goes beyond 3.
if the deed came with 1 tract or 10 tracts, as long as it came together in that 1 deed that makes up that farm, you can resurvey it and get a description of the entire boundaries. Won't make any difference. The regulation with respect to the farm is if it's 5 tracts, it's a 5 tract farm. It wouldn't make any difference.
think what he's asking is if they continue, if they came back and asked for 2 more 5-acre tracts on the remainder, that would trigger
Yes.
the A5 rezoning because
Yes.
it would.
Yeah, that's what I was
Once you
trying to
get
get
beyond
at, Bruce,
three.
yeah.
That would,
Once you
that
get
would
beyond
be
And
more
I
than
think that
two.
was
5
Mr.
acre
Wolf's
tracts.
question.
Yeah, that would be more than two.
Yeah. Okay. Does that answer your question, Mr. Wolf?
So when breaking it up this way, it's a different set of rules than if the whole property had been considered
Not really.
together.
No, that doesn't change. They
No.
get 2 5 acres. If they go to a 3, it's a major. If they don't have any more 5s, it'll never be a major, but they'll all be 10 acres or more.
Okay. And then the final thing I was, and maybe you all have already addressed this, since there's only one, I guess one new entrance onto Lloyd Road. Lloyd Road is the road that one of our farms is on. It is a dangerous road, absolutely. When I went to check on this at your all's offices, I was told that possibly a condition might be that road from the front to 227 would need to be widened to county subdivision plans, width and construction. Would that be a condition that you all would consider putting on this?
Joe, would you say the road was already wide enough to meet those?
To lot 8, beyond it narrows down along lot 7. Beyond.
Yeah, the only section, according to the report, was the only section that we would have widened is already to county spec. If it had gone further where the road narrows, they would have had to have widened that, but it doesn't. It's only up to that one driveway.
So
that we're putting
from
in.
the church there, or the little wood A-frame or whatever on the Taylor property back towards 227 already is of width to meet the county specifications?
It's been widened on that, at least been widened on that side, hasn't it? I don't know if it's been widened on both sides or one side.
That's got a little addition of
Yeah.
some blacktop. I wouldn't want to drive down it 35 miles an hour.
35.
That's the concern I have on Lloyd Road, but thank you all.
Thank you.
Mr. Blakeman?
Hi, everybody. My name is Daryl Blakeman, and this is my first foray into this civic-minded activity. So I'm kind of
State your
enjoying
address,
it.
please.
Sir?
Your address, please.
My address is 1083 Stamping Ground Road. I live in Great Crossing on 227, on the other side of the creek from where this development is, on the east side of the creek. And a couple of things. First, I'd like to say that one of my concerns in general is I'm a lifelong resident of Scott County. I moved here in 1960, and I remember the quality of this town. It's a small town, and I do appreciate the growth and the advantages that we have from some of the growth that we have. The benefits that we've got, the services that we have, those are good things. But I think at some point in the last 25 years, we've kind of hit the tipping point, and we've started to go the other way, where the negative impacts of the development in this county are outweighing the benefits. I don't want to be Louisville or Lexington. That's why I'm in Georgetown. Actually, I'm not even in Georgetown. I'm in Great Crossing because Georgetown's too big for me. But these small communities like Great Crossing and Oxford, the characteristics of these small rural locations are disappearing. And it happens one piece at a time. It's one farm gets sold, and then it's easier to sell the land next to it. They build a highway. It's called divide and concrete. They build a highway. It's easier once they've built the road. Well, the road's already there. The developers are going to develop it. And I'm not against all of that. But like Mr. Wiseman said, there's plenty of plots in Georgetown. It's not like this is a need that has to be filled, that people don't have places that are already there, ready to build on. That those places are there. I heard a number like 1,400. So. Why do we continue to expand and expand and expand to the point where Georgetown and the surrounding communities are going to lose their qualities and their characteristics? Now, That's all I'm going to say about that. The other thing I'm going to say is I can tell you from personal experience, I've been living in the house that I'm living on. By the way, I didn't build it. I bought a house that was pre-existing, and I had it and bought it and fixed it up, and you know, spent quite a bit of renovations on that place. For any of you who know where it is, and I'm telling you, if you're talking about line of sight based on speed limits, there is no speed limit on 227. Right now, I have 3 active insurance claims on property damage to my house. 3. Right now, within the last 4 weeks. I am not kidding. The Lieutenant Hudnall from the Sheriff's Department is in the process of bringing the speed sign down there and putting it on my side of the bridge, the one that tells you when you're going too fast. And he's already told me, I said the speed limit's 25. He's already told me that he can't make it 25 because if he makes it 25, it'll kill the battery because it'll flash all the time. And the flashing, when somebody's over the speed limit, is what kills the battery. He said, I'm going to have to make it 35 or it'll kill the battery. I don't know if Devine was almost killed on that bridge as a pedestrian. I don't know if he mentioned that. I stepped out of the room. And, I mean, it's just... for anybody to say line of sight because based on the speed limit, you know, you forget that. And for anybody to say that because there's people being killed on other highways that makes this diminishes the danger on 227, I don't agree with that either. But people do not drive the speed limit on 227, and if you're going to put more emphasis in, especially on that part of that road, you're asking for increased danger to motorists, and I'm sorry they won't drive the speed limit. I don't know how to get them to drive the speed limit. But there have been, I am estimating, I have a open records request with the city clerk right now to get the last 16 years that I've been living there, the number of 911 calls for automobile accidents at my address, and it's going to be over 60. I'm sure it's going to be over 60 in 16 years. So that's the kind of road that you're talking about building on. I have spoken to Mr. Bidwell, who's the state highway engineer, and I'm asking for a guardrail in front of my house because I've had it. It's too dangerous, and so my concern is to continue to put traffic on that road, to continue to put entrances on that road is my major concern, and in general, my other concern is the fact that we just at some point we need to be more conservative and thoughtful of how we're going to grow this county without destroying the quality of life that is part of living in this part of Kentucky. I mean, you don't want to lose, I don't want to lose the rural flavor and have it become just another, hustling, bustling metropolis. There are plenty of, like I mentioned again, there are plenty of places to build within a certain area, wherever. I know the urban service boundary, I have seen where there's been a dotted line and they've pushed it way out, especially out on my side of the county. I've seen that map, and they've pushed the urban service boundary out potentially, but that's just the first step for making it happen, for opening all that up to development. I will say this before I quit. I am pleased that this was, when I heard that they sold that farm and were going to develop it, if I thought that was going to be one of the cluster developments where it was going to be 100 homes, I would have put my house up for sale and moved, because I wasn't going to live there with that much more traffic coming across that bridge. So I'm not too upset that it's only this. This I can probably live with. If there's nothing that I can do to stop this, I'm not going to be real upset about it. But I'm telling you, this idea of putting these roads on, putting these entrances on there and acting like it's going to be okay, that's just not going to happen. I mean, it's not going to be what you think it is. It's going to be dangerous. Anyway, I've rambled on long enough. Thank you very much.
If that had been a cluster, they could have had 14 homes on it.
Oh, well, I didn't know. I was thinking when I saw that it was for sale, and I know Noel, the guy who was the guy had the horses on there before. He's an acquaintance of mine, and he was where I first heard that it was going to be sold. No, I think Chuck Tackett told me, somebody. But anyway, I heard about it, and then my first thought was it's going to be 300 houses over there. But I thank you for your time, and maybe you'll see me in here again sometime. Thanks.
Mr. Hall, you ready to speak now? Yes, sir. All right.
Bob Hall, 1549 Stamping Ground Road. My main concern, it's been quoted a couple of times here tonight, has been the traffic and the danger it is on that road because it is a drag strip. If those houses, those lots, those 10-acre lots have a house on them, if a school bus stops in front of them, it's going to be a wreck because they won't be able to stop going towards the bus as fast as they drive that road. And I think that needs to be considered. The number of exits off of the property needs to be minimized to one, and in a location that can be seen from all directions. Because it is a drag strip right now, from there to Stamping Ground. When we are losing part of the beauty of our country. Thank you.
That's all.
That's it? Anyone else? Mr. Day?
Just a couple of things. Traffic in the new driveways seem to be a big concern. I think we're eliminating one pretty unsafe driveway and replacing it with a better one. The other one to the north, I think sight distance is good. And Joe has already indicated that he's working with the Department of Transportation to make sure that we get these in good locations. And I can add, you can tell by the size of these lots, we've got some flexibility in where those division lines go. So I expect there's going to be some adjustment there, in where the division lines among the tracks is in order to accommodate these entrances. But the main thing I want to mention, I maintain that because we have what is actually 3 tracts of land, there's a there was actually I think a 13-acre tract that's contained inside the other 95 tract. But I maintain they are entitled to 2 more 5-acre tracts on the other, because they own 2 parcels of land, which are both viable tracts of land. Either one could have been sold individually. And so I maintain that they're entitled to 2 more 5-acre tracts on the other one. Whether or not they'll ever do it, I don't know. But it is one deed, but it's multiple parcels. That's all. I just want to mention those couple of things. Thanks.
None of the driveways will be shared, will they?
Yeah, 2 of them. 2 of them will be. Now the one off Lloyd Road just be to a single family residence. Tract 7 already has a driveway. There's a residence there. Tract 1 has a driveway. There's a residence there. We're only adding 6 new homes, on this 72 acres. There's already 2 on the farm. So, thanks again.
Will each one of these driveways have to be approved by the state where they come out and everything?
On 227.
On 227? Okay. No, the state will have to approve that?
Yeah.
Yeah, those are actually applied for.
Okay.
Hey, Rob, can I just say one last thing?
Yes, sir. Come on.
Just one last thing.
And for the 3rd time, I thank y'all for your service to have sit here and listen to me. Not to get personal, and this is about this property, but it's about Scott County. I lost my job in 2008. I had a great job. I went over 2 years without a job. Not to get personal, but it's very personal. We could have easily sold our farm. You know where it is. We built that house. We had 10 foot down, never hit a rock. It's best soil in Scott County. We could have easily sold that and never had to work another day in our life. But somebody sacrificed for us to have it. And I'll be darned if I'm going to be the one that relinquishes it. The land means that much to me, to my kids. We've actually entailed it to where our kids can't sell it because it matters. If you look at all the farms around me, this farm has been in my wife's family since 1868. Groverland has been in their family, I believe, since 1790. The Gaines Farm, I'm sure, is back at least 1790 because they were all related. You know, that's very historical land. That's where the Choctaw Indian Academy sits. You got all the historical things right at Great Crossings that people don't even talk about. You got the home of the Vice President of the United States. You got its parents are buried there right behind the church in that little cemetery, rock cemetery right behind Great Crossing Baptist. You know, but that's not the only place in Scott County that you have history. And I love history because it's hard to know where you're going as a people if you don't know where you've been. And I know that we're growing. And sometimes it's hard to balance. And I like some of the growth. Trust me, I like a lot of the growth that we've incurred in the last 20 years. But I'm going to once again reiterate, if I could passionately plead for one thing, is to look at your policies, procedures, look at what has worked in the past, look at what you think is going to be needed in the future, because probably what has worked in the past is not going to work in the future. People are coming here in a drove. They're leaving Fayette County. They're leaving the traffic, the crime, and they're bringing it to Scott County. It follows them. I'm not saying they're bad people, but it follows them. I promise you, the amount of traffic, the amount of deaths are higher than they've ever been right now. The amount of burglaries are higher. Drugs, I can tell you, being in the school system, drugs are here in Scott County, and they're bad. So all of that is equated to growth. I'm not anti-growth. Unfortunately, it's your all's job to balance it, and I appreciate what you do. And I know each one of you all are very conscientious. Each one of you all have got families that have grown up here. You've lived here all your life, and I thank you for what you do.
Yes, sir. Mr. Langford.
This is a situation where Brian Jones saw the farm for sale. He bought it. He said that I wanted to subdivide it into these 6 lots. He hired Joel Day. Joel drew up the plans. Getting familiar with the plans that have to meet the regulations in Scott County, he took the plans to Joe Kane's office. Joe went over them with his staff, reviewed them, wrote a report, a recommendation that said these plans comply with our requirements. They meet the regulations. Brian Jones has a right to develop this property as he proposed. If he did not meet those requirements, if he did not meet those guidelines and regulations, he would not have that right. But he has that right because he complies with regulations which this board enforces along with your staff, the regulations which were drafted, legislated by our legislative bodies. It's unfortunate about traffic. People drive too fast, but that doesn't have a thing to do with Brian Jones. So if he's exercising his right by meeting the requirements and the regulations, that's a right he has. So I ask you to go with Joe Kane's recommendation and grant him that right.
Yes, ma'am. You'll have to state your name and swear in too, please.
My name is Anita Gilkey-Smith, and I'm here on behalf of my mother, Sue Gilkey.
And you swear or affirm what you're about to say to the truth, the best of your
Yes.
information and belief. Thank you, ma'am.
I wanted to find out about 1081 Stamping Ground Road.
Can you state your address? Is that what you're?
1080. My mother owns 1081 Stamping Ground
Okay,
Road.
thank you.
And I wanted to find out about the entrance there. That's
Is that the McIntyre property on top of the hill?
No,
or-
that's Barber.
Where is this address?
Charles Henry Barber, right next to the church. Right beside the church, and the cemetery is right
Okay.
in
The
behind.
White House?
White House on the
Okay.
hill.
Yes, ma'am.
So I wanted to find out about that because my mother owns it and no one's in the home place at all now.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to know, is there some type of something that's going to come through there or what? Because we haven't
No,
been
ma'am.
out. So we don't have
It
to
has
worry
nothing
about
to do-
any of that.
It has nothing to do with this property.
Okay, what about the other end of the county? Muddy Ford Road?
You what?
Muddy Ford Road.
Yeah.
I'm part owner in that on Muddy Ford. So I wanted to make sure that no one's notifying us of anything else that's
Oh, we don't
going
have
on
anything.
in the county.
We don't have anything on Muddy Ford Road tonight.
Okay,
No, ma'am.
that's what I need to find out.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Does anyone else want to speak? Does anyone on the commission have any questions, comments?
Comments, no questions, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, I got plenty of comments myself, so
Yeah.
Mr. Shirley, if you want to start.
Well, addressing some of Mr. Conway's concerns, we are continually looking at our existing ordinances, doing the best we can to make what we think are very constructive changes for the betterment of the city and the county. The growth is about impossible to stop. We have, on many occasions, reached out to the state because we understand too that our infrastructure is lacking to take care of the growth that we're seeing. Not only on 227, we've got problems out Connector Road, Old Oxford Road, and we are trying our best to address those problems. Obviously, we have no control over that. All we can do is express that, continually the growth that we're having, we need some help with our infrastructure. Obviously, we could stop growth completely, but then that's a bad situation for everyone. Mr. Jones has bought this farm, which was for sale. Anybody in this room, well, maybe not anybody in this room, but other people could have bought it, okay? And it's my understanding, you correct me if I'm wrong, but it was part of the farm across the road with the antebellum house, the historic big house. Is that the lady that sold the property?
Her daughter.
Her daughter, which happens. Obviously, I know you struggled to keep your farm. I was there at one point. I know exactly what you're talking about. But in the days goings on, it's sometimes impossible to do that.
I understand that.
So these farms have to be sold. It's just common sense and practical sense. Mr. Jones bought this farm, and I'm sure he investigated and was aware of our rules, regulations, and our ordinances. So I personally feel it would be very unfair for us at this point now to kind of go back on our existing ordinances that we have today. It would be very tough for me to say no to Mr. Jones because he is doing everything that he's supposed to do to stay within our guidelines and our regulations. And as far as the traffic goes, as far as the speed people drive, I have major concerns every day in the city, along with the county. I'm out on the roads every day. But there again, it wouldn't be fair to say, well, Mr. Jones can't do this because people do not abide by the law. And I don't know what we do about it because I feel like it's getting worse. Either I'm getting older and slower, or people are driving a whole lot faster than they used to. I mean, they do, and it's terrible. And I know that our sheriff's department is trying to stay out on some of these county roads. 25, we had the disasters on 25, but they can't be there every second. And I don't know how you slow people down, especially some of these youngsters. You're talking about drugs and crime. Well, there again, I sympathize with you, but it doesn't have anything to do with what Mr. Jones wants to do. We can't, we might want to take that into consideration, but we really can't.
John, I appreciate it.
But we feel, we talk a lot, and we feel your concerns, and we are trying to make some changes. But, in my personal opinion, what Mr. Jones is wanting to do with this tract, it would probably be, if it's going to change, it's probably the best case scenario that could possibly happen. Staying in the larger tracts, limiting the number of homes. So, that's just my opinion on the
John,
thing.
if you would clarify one thing. If they
Haley, you have to
build-
come up to the microphone. She can't
If
hear
they
you.
build a roasted farm, it has to be 10-acre tracts. Is that what
Yes.
the
Well,
dialogue
that's a
was?
debate right now.
Yeah, that's common debate too.
That's the way I took it, But Mr. Day says he doesn't
It was
feel
one
like that
farm,
because it
so
was
I'm
different
just,
tracks.
I mean, one farm, one sale, so I
can't-
assume.
We probably can't answer that tonight, Haley, till Mr. Kane and our staff have time to get with Mr. Day and they figure it out, because
With what they've done, and I have no problems whatsoever, John. I just, honestly, I love the place. I wished I'd had the money. I would have bought it. But unfortunately, it's just one of those things that was out of my price range. But at the end of the day, looking at what they're thinking about doing, it looked like the best of the options. But my question is, what's going to happen with the rest of it? Because that does impact us. My wife's uncle owns every bit of land that borders that. Then you're looking at, he's going to want a buffer zone, from that subdivision and blah, blah, blah. Then it gets to be a different can of worms. And I'm just curious, what's going to happen to the other 80 to 100 acres?
But I can I can understand what, Mr. Jones's stance is right now. He would not want to publicly commit to something before he sees how this goes. That's just common good business sense. And anything that he does beyond this has to come back for approval. So then everyone will have a chance again to look at what's going on. And maybe this'll show us something too, that, hey, this worked out great, so then, continue on, or this didn't work out so great. And Mr. Jones is gonna learn by it too. If he sells it quick, makes some money, that's great for him, that's the intent, that's the American way, and then moves on. But anything he does past this, hey, it has to come back to us. But he can't foretell the future, we can't foretell the future, and we definitely can't tell him what to do with his property.
John,
To a certain extent.
this is the best of the options that I see. It could be a lot worse.
Yeah.
And with that said, there's no surprise here, but I would be remiss if I had to come and at least voice my concern.
Sure.
I appreciate it.
And we appreciate it.
Anyone else? Mr. Wiseman?
I'd like to quote a good friend of mine who's on the Fayette County Planning and Zoning. His name is Frank Penn. I don't know how many of you know him. He's a very nice man. He spoke 2 or 3 months ago at their planning and zoning and said the purpose of planning and zoning is to provide an area that is good for the citizens, not to make money for developers and real estate agents. And I applaud him for saying that. Now, the other thing I want to say is that with 1,500 places people can build, I see no reason why destroying this quality of farmland for 8 more makes any sense. And what my good friend John said, this is related to these other issues, because here's going to be 8 houses, which will be 16, 24 more people, more cars, more crime. And all these issues are going to be made just that much little bigger. And if we can stop it at some point, we should do so.
Anyone else?
I would echo what was said tonight. We do have a lot of pressure in Scott County that's coming from Woodford County, Bourbon County, Fayette County. We're convenient to a lot of places, whether you can live in Scott County and one spouse can work in Louisville, one can work in Cincinnati, and you're about halfway. Or you can go to Frankfort and Lexington. We're convenient for a lot of things. But the pressure is very strong here, because Woodford and Bourbon and Fayette have already taken measures to slow down the growth in their rural areas. So between that and also our lower taxes, makes us pretty much set for extremely high growth rate.
As all y'all know, I live in Stamping Ground. I travel this road every day. Speeders are on this road, just like everywhere else in the county.
Everywhere else.
Unless they get behind me. Then they slow down real quick, because I drive slow. I guess like John said, I'm getting older and I don't have to go as fast as I used to. I drive by this farm every day. I used to love seeing the horses out there every day. I can drive by it now and I can still see the horses. They used to run in that paddock right there. It was all one big paddock. It was great to see those horses running. You look across the road, you got the big mansion. Wildlife everywhere. I used to think once I hit this area right here, I was in the county. I knew I'd left the city and I was heading into the county. For the last several years, I've always told people, any developer I know, growth is heading towards stamping ground, and this is proof. If you look in stamping ground now, we got houses going up in stamping ground now. It's not going to stop. Mr. Conway made a comment about Toyota. Toyota's been here for 30 years. I think for 30 years, this county has managed itself pretty well. Are we all happy with some of the roads and conditions we have? No, I'm particularly not. But we've done the best we could with what we got. I think the planning and zoning staff has always tried to manage growth in a way to not let it overrun us. As bad as I hate to see this farm go, like Mr. Conway, it's the best plan that I could imagine happening to this farm, other than it staying a horse farm.
Amen.
I would love to see it stay a horse farm, but growth is going to happen. It's inevitable that it's going to grow towards stamping ground. This is great farmland. It's always been great farmland towards stamping ground. My grandfather has farmed many of farms up through there. It's always been great farmland. But we as a commission, and this is where I have to take my heart out of it and use what we're told to do as a commission, is that we set forth a set of guidelines and rules for these folks to follow if they buy these farms to want to develop them. We give them a set of rules, and if they do what we ask, I see no reason why we can turn them down. That's just my opinion on that. I don't know how everyone else feels, but that's my opinion. I do hate to see the farm be broke up, but we are growing. We are a growing community. And I wish there was a way we could stop the speeding and stuff going up and down this road. And I applaud Haley and Millie for putting it out there that, you know, their kids can't sell their farm, because that does keep our farmland out that way. So I consider this the gateway to stamping ground, in my opinion, so, because we love stamping ground. So this is kind of like a little personal issue for me, but we do have to do what we're put up here to do. So that's my comments. Does anyone else have any comments?
Our new comp
Yes,
plan
sir.
has not
I would
been.
like to comment one more time. Again, Darrell Blakeman, 1083 Stamping Ground Road. I'd like to say that I appreciate Mr. Langford, right? His statement, and it was eloquent. He has a right to do this. He's met the requirements, and that's, I understand that. So nobody's going to be questioning that. That is legal, and it's in his rights. He met the requirements. You guys are the ones that make the requirements, correct? More or less.
Our comp plan does.
Okay, but I'm just going to leave with this thought. Leave you with this thought is, yes, this in my opinion too. This is the best outcome for this piece of land. I like what Frank said. Is it worth tearing this up for 8 more houses? 8 more houses to ruin that piece of land? Well, not ruin it. Don't get me wrong. I don't mean ruin. It was a little strong. But this farm, and you're talking about growth. Eventually, one day it's going to be the farm next to it, and eventually one day it's going to be the farm next to it, and eventually one day it's going to be the farm next to it. And where is that going to stop? If you don't do something and have some kind of plan in place, that growth that you're talking about never stopping will never stop, and it will all. Now our lifetimes, maybe not, but we're talking about our children and our grandchildren and their children, and eventually, if you don't do something more severe, I guess is the word I can think of, then one day that all those farms are gone, because as long as the next farm can be sold, and if it's done, they wait 10 years before they sell the next one, and people get used to the farm that's there that's got houses on it. So 10 years from now, well, this one went, and it's been 10 years. Well, we can sell this one. Eventually, they're all gone. Eventually, there are going to be no places that you could drive down the road and look over and look at the horses running around. Not in this county. So just something to think about, that at some point, you can't just let it all, by saying the reason that you can't stop growth doesn't mean, I don't think that that's true. I think you can control it and you can confine it into a space. You don't have to allow it to just continue to sprawl out and lose more and more and more of that kind of acreage and that kind of scenery. That's all I need to say.
In response to that, for the last year and a half, we have been updating the comp plan. We've had many citizens come in to the office. We've broke up into several committees. For a year and a half, we've been updating this comp plan. That's our guideline to what we need to do is we use the comp plan. And we've had a lot of great ideas. Some of what you're saying could have been great ideas into this comp plan. And as what's his name, Mr. Richardson, had wrote in his letter.
Right.
There is an idea thrown out there to move up to 20 to 40 acre tracts in the south end of the county, try to push the 5 acre tracts to the north, because the 20 to 40 acre tracts is going to be more farmable than the land up north. It's just the way it is. That's what the topographical layout of our land. That's just the way it is in Scott County. So some of those conversations have been going on, just to let everybody know, for the last year and a half, and we are getting really close to adopting the comp plan. So just to lay that out there.
Thank you, sir.
And Mr. Wiseman, on a note that you said about the 1,400 lots, I know that sounds like a lot of lots. I see them every day. I see a house go up every day. There's a new house. I wire houses. It is so hard for me to keep up. But out of those 1,400 lots, I would bet to say that 2/3 of them are owned by one company. So that leaves not a whole lot of lots for private builders that have lived here all their lives and have made a lot of money building houses because of Toyota. A lot of friends of mine have built houses and made their living that way for several years. They're getting pushed out because there are no lots left for them to buy.
Real estate people, if he comes into the county, you want a house you can move into right now. You don't want one you're gonna build. You want one you can move into right now. They cannot find houses for people to move into.
It does sound like a lot of lots, but in reality, I really don't think it's as many as what we think when we look at 1,400 and realize who owns most of those 1,400 lots.
Kind of a monopoly.
Yeah,
Yeah, it is.
It kind of
It
happened
is.
that way because of the way the economy turned.
Yeah.
The people that had the money was able to buy the lots pretty cheap. And now it's kind of pushed out. And Mr. Shirley here does the same. He builds houses for people. And it's getting
Good
harder and
job.
harder to find those lots for these folks. So,
Well, another comment I'd like to make too, as far as when we get into, just for the folks that are here, into planning, and like Mr. Wiseman brought up, and it does sound like a lot of lots, but like Mr. Jones said, in reality, it's not. But another thing is we cannot dictate to somebody where they're gonna build their house or where they're gonna buy their house. It would be, I don't think it would be great. I don't think it'd be a good idea. It can't be done anyways. And there are people out there that find this type of development very, very desirable, and they want to build there. And I'm sure what these lots are gonna bring, there's not gonna be any small homes built on them. There's no way that you would pay whatever for one of these lots and build some small home. But there's a need, even though we've got so many smaller residential lots, there's still a need for these type of acreages. It just is. You can't tell somebody that, well, I want to buy 10 acres and I'm going to build a 4,000 square foot home. Well, you can't get it on a postage stamp lot anyways, but we can't tell them, no, we're not going to do that anymore. You got to go over there and buy a lot. It's just tough for us too we know what's going on, or we think we know, but it's tough it's a juggling act, and you can't dictate to somebody where they're going to live. We all got to make our choices where we wanted to live, so it'd be pretty hypocritical for us to sit up here and say, well, you can't live there, you can live here.
I'd like
involved.
I'd like to make my comments is we're all reminded, and I'm sure everybody in this room knows, Scott County is the fastest growing county in the state of Kentucky and will continue. Toyota invested $1.3 billion here this past April. It's not going to slow down. I know when I talk to people, I always compare Scott County to a freight train that's running 100 miles an hour. You cannot stop a freight train running 100 miles an hour on a dime. It just won't happen. The majority of people here spoke not necessarily against, but it seems to be more to slow it down. With the exception, I think several of the commissioners said, this staying a farm, this is probably the best use. You're gonna add a couple driveways on 227, and I've been up and down the road. I've been to a few of the farm owners' homes here that are here tonight. I think our job as commissioners is to help manage the growth of the county intelligently, as well as being fiscally responsible and helping our county grow and stay a great, safe community. Now, with growth does come additional crime, but you know, we're not Lexington, and I hope we never become Lexington. That's all I've got to say.
You know, when I first seen that sign hanging out there on the fence, I called Joe. I said, what in the world is going on out here? There's no way. Yeah, there is a way. This is the plan for it. So I didn't want it either. But this is it. If there's any more discussion, if not, we need to have a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I think they met all the requirements for our existing account plan and what we have on the books. I would move that we accept this FSP 2017-28.
With the,
Conditions?
how many conditions? 6 conditions there.
Six yes.
I'd like to second
And
that.
I guess I meant to ask if the applicant is fine with the conditions of approval? Okay, thank you. And we have a second. We have a motion by Mr. Smith, and we have a second by Mr. Shirley. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
No.
Mr. Wiseman votes no. Motion is approved. You'll have to sign your papers, please. Thank you, folks, for coming out.
Thank you very much.
We appreciate everyone coming out for this.
My baby. See my baby? You're my baby.
That's all the business.
If no one else has anything else to say, meeting adjourned. Sign my copy. Like the stranger.
That's my granddaughter right there.
That's your